The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was always cold. Not in the way a winter night was cold, but in the way old stone is cold. The walls were made of pale crystal that had been mined from a dead moon long before humans had even learned to make fire. The ceiling reached so high that voices got lost in it. 17 seats sat in a wide circle, each one shaped for the body of the species that owned it. One seat was tall and thin for the crystal Vorthak. One was a soft round nest for the Solari, who could read minds. One was a buzzing chamber for the Krellanaut, who shared a single hive mind across thousands of bodies. And one, near the back, was a simple human chair. It looked plain next to the others. It looked small. The human seat belonged to Ambassador Elena Voss. She had been sitting in it for 11 years. Today she sat in it again, with her hands folded on her lap and her dark hair tied back. And she listened to the Vorthak speaker drone on about a trade dispute between two minor worlds. The dispute was over a rare gas. Both sides had been arguing for 9 years. Elena had heard the same speech, with only small changes, at least 20 times. She did not yawn. She had learned long ago not to yawn in this room. 2 centuries had passed since humans first met the council. In that time, humans had been polite. They had signed treaties. They had paid dues. They had asked questions and listened to long answers. They had been called the new ones for so long that Elena now thought of it as a kind of name. The older species saw humans as young children. Smart enough, perhaps. Useful, in small ways, but not yet ready for serious matters. Elena did not mind being underestimated. In fact, she had come to see it as a kind of armor. While the Vorthak boasted of their crystal cities, and the Solari spoke of mind bridges between stars, the humans had been quietly building, quietly learning, quietly watching. Earth had its own fleet now, and its own colonies, and its own secrets. But Elena never spoke of these things in the Great Hall. She smiled. She nodded. She waited. Beside her, in a smaller seat at the back of the chamber, sat Admiral Marcus Chen. He was a tall man, with gray at his temples, and a soldier's stillness in his shoulders. He was not a diplomat. He was here only as the military attaché, which meant he listened more than he spoke. Elena trusted him more than anyone in the galaxy. Marcus had spent 30 years studying the Council's wars. He had read every report, every record, every dusty old file, and he had told Elena, more than once, that something was very wrong with the way the Council handled violence. They never punish anyone, Marcus had said one night over a cup of tea in Elena's small ambassador's flat. Have you noticed? When a strong species attacks a weak one, the Council writes a letter, maybe 2 letters. They send a censure. They cut off some trade. And then, in 5 or 10 years, everyone forgets. The strong species keeps its loot. The weak species stays weak. The Council calls this peace. I call it something else. Elena had asked him, that night, what he called it. Marcus had only smiled. I will tell you when it matters, he had said. Now, in the Great Hall, the Vorthak speaker finally finished his speech about the gas. The Council voted. The dispute was put off for another 5 years of study. Elena raised her hand to vote with the majority, like she always did on small matters. She was saving her voice for bigger things. Then the speaker turned to her. Ambassador Voss, he said, in his slow crystal voice. Your delegation requested a moment at the end of today's session. The floor is yours. Elena stood. She had a small report to give about a new human colony. The kind of routine update no one really listened to. She opened her mouth to begin, but before any words came out, a small light on her wrist console began to blink. Red. Then it began to pulse. Red, red, red. Elena's mouth went dry. She knew that signal. Every human ambassador in the galaxy carried it. It meant only one thing. A colony had gone silent. Elena looked down at the console. The name on the screen was Kepler Nova. A frontier world. 2 million people. Farms. Schools. A small spaceport. A family-style colony. The kind humans built when they wanted to live close to the stars but still close to each other. Kepler Nova had children. Kepler Nova had grandparents. Kepler Nova had a poet in residence. Elena remembered all of this because she had visited the colony 3 years ago on a goodwill tour. She had eaten dinner with the governor and held a baby in her arms. Now there was no signal from Kepler Nova. No distress call. No final message. Just static. As if the world had been wiped clean. Marcus saw her face. He knew. He stood up at once and walked to her side, and the two of them shared a long, silent look. Then Elena lifted her chin and turned back to the council. "Honored members," she said, and her voice did not shake. "I must withdraw my report. We have a different matter to bring before you. One of our colonies, Kepler Nova, has stopped communicating. It is too soon to know what has happened, but we ask the council to be ready in case we need help." The Vorthak speaker tilted his crystal head. There was a long pause. Around the chamber, the older species traded slow looks. None of them looked truly worried. A young species often had problems with its colonies. A storm, a failed reactor, a simple equipment fault. These things happened. "The council notes the request," the speaker said at last. "We advise the human delegation to investigate calmly and to avoid rash actions. Whatever has happened, we are sure that wisdom and patience will bring it to light." The session is closed. The other delegates rose. They drifted out in their small groups, talking softly among themselves. None of them came to speak to Elena. None of them asked if she was all right. To them, this was a small thing. A young species had lost contact with one of its small worlds. They would handle it. They always did. Elena and Marcus walked out of the great hall together. The corridors of the council building were long and shining, and full of soft music meant to calm visitors. Elena did not feel calm. Her hands were cold. Her stomach was tight. She kept thinking of the baby she had held 3 years ago. That baby would be 3 years old now. Or would have been. Back in the small human office, the staff was already gathered around the main display. The screen showed the latest data from the long-range probes. There were a few faint images: burning farms, empty streets, a single shuttle, half buried in dust, with a child's toy lying near the door. There were no bodies. That was the strange part. No bodies at all. Marcus stood very still as he looked at the screen. Elena stood beside him. "It was not a storm," Marcus said quietly. "It was not an accident." Elena nodded. She did not trust her voice. Marcus turned to her. His eyes were the calmest thing in the room. "Ambassador," he said, "I think we will need to call the president." "Yes," Elena said. "Yes, I think we will." Far away, on a small green world that humans still called home, the sun was just rising over the wide blue oceans. In a quiet office, a phone began to ring. The president of Earth, a woman with tired eyes and a steady voice, picked it up. She listened. Her face did not change. She had been preparing for a call like this her whole life, and so had every president before her. "Send me everything," she said, "and tell the council that humanity will handle this matter ourselves." Outside the window of the great council hall, the stars wheeled on in their slow dance. The galaxy did not yet know that something had changed. The older species went home and ate their evening meals and slept their easy sleep. They thought today had been a normal day, like all the days before it. They were wrong. The day Kepler Nova went silent was the day a long, long patience finally began to crack. And though no one in the great hall had heard it, the crack had been very loud indeed. The next 9 days were the worst of Elena Voss's life. She slept very little. She ate even less. The reports from Kepler Nova kept coming in, slow and terrible, and each one made the picture clearer. Each one made the silence heavier. Human ships had reached the colony on the 3rd day. They found a world that had been picked clean. The farms were burned. The houses were torn open like cans. The schools and hospitals were empty. There were no bodies, not because no one had died, but because the killers had taken the dead with them. They had taken the living too. They had taken everything that breathed. On the 5th day, the survey teams found the first clue: a piece of metal stuck in a wall. The metal had a strange dark color and a serial number etched in a script the human computers did not know at first. But after a long search, the script came back with a name: Drathari. Elena had heard the name before. The Drathari Imperium was not a council member. It was an outer empire, a strong and cruel one, ruled by a warrior class that had spread across many systems. The Drathari were known to the council as a developing species. They had been raiding small worlds for hundreds of years. The council had written letters about them. The council had passed resolutions. But the council had never moved against them, because the Drathari were strong and far away, and a real fight would cost too much. On the seventh day, Marcus Chen brought Elena a folder. He did not speak as he set it on her desk. He just stood there, very still, while she opened it. Inside were images and reports from a deep human spy network the council did not know about. The pictures showed Drathari markets, big open halls full of cages. The cages held people. Some were green-skinned aliens. Some were furred. And some, in the newest pictures, were human. The report said the Drathari did not just raid for treasure. They raided for bodies. They sold living beings as workers, as test subjects, and as food. There were buyers all across the outer rim. And even, Marcus said in a low voice, a few quiet buyers inside the council itself. Names were attached. Old, important names. Elena read for an hour without speaking. When she was done, she closed the folder very softly, as if it were a sleeping child. Then she stood up. Her face was pale, but her eyes were dry. "Call the council," she said. "I want a full session tomorrow. All 17 species. No excuses." Marcus tilted his head. "They will not like being told what to do." "I do not care what they like," Elena said. "Tell them the human delegation has evidence of a crime against the galaxy. Tell them we are bringing it to the floor. They can listen, or they can try to stop us. But they will not get a third choice." Marcus nodded once and went to make the call. The next morning, the great hall was full. The Vorthak speaker sat at the high seat. The celery mine mother sat in her soft nest. Her many eyes turned toward Elena. The Krellonaut hive was silent, as always. 100 small drones, standing very still, around their main body. The other species filled their seats. The hall, which was usually cool, felt almost warm with the press of so many bodies. Elena walked to the center of the floor. She wore a plain, dark suit. She had no notes in her hands. She had memorized everything. "Honored members," she said. 9 days ago, 2 million human citizens were taken from their homes on the world of Kepler Nova. They did not flee. They did not fight. They were taken. Today I will tell you who took them, what was done to them, and what we ask of this council in response. She spoke for 2 hours. She showed the images on the great central screen. She read the reports. She named the Drathari ships, the Drathari captains, and the Drathari markets. She showed the cages. She showed a small human shoe that had been found at one of the docks. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. When she was done, the great hall was very quiet. Some of the smaller species, the ones who lived on the edges of council space, looked sick. Some looked scared. The Krellonaut drones had stopped moving entirely. Even the Solari Mind Mother, who could feel the emotions of every being in the room, looked shaken. Elena stepped back. "We bring this to you," she said, "because the Drathari Imperium is a known enemy of civilized life. We ask the Council for full action. A war fleet. A blockade. A demand for the return of every survivor. We ask for justice." There was a long pause. The Vorthak speaker rose. He was old, even for a Vorthak, and his crystal body had small cracks at the edges. He spoke with care. "Ambassador Voss," he said, "the Council shares your sorrow. The acts you have shown us are very bad. We will not pretend they are not. But the Council must also think of the long view. The Drathari are a strong empire. A war with them would cost millions of lives, perhaps tens of millions, across many worlds. That cost would not fall on the humans alone. It would fall on all of us." Elena's mouth tightened, but she said nothing. The speaker went on. "We propose instead a formal censure. A strong letter, strong words. We propose trade sanctions to begin in 11 standard cycles, once the legal review is complete. We propose a fact-finding mission to be sent in 2 years to confirm the details. These are the proper steps. These are the steps of a wise civilization. 11 cycles, Elena thought. 11 cycles was almost 3 Earth years. The Drathari would be done with the Kepler Nova survivors long before that. Most would be dead. The rest would be scattered to 1,000 markets. The Solari Mind Mother spoke next. Her voice was soft and full of feeling. "Dear human friend," she said, "we feel your pain. We have all felt it, here in this room, through my mind. But we must teach you something hard. Pain is not a guide. Pain wants quick answers. Civilization is the choice to wait, to think, to act slowly, with great care." Then the Krellonaut hive spoke. Its many small mouths buzzed at once. "We abstain," it said. "The matter is not ours." One by one, the older species spoke. Each one said the same thing in a different way. Patience, process, the long view. A few of the smaller species tried to speak up for the humans, but their voices were quiet, and the older species talked over them. At the end, an old Vorthak diplomat named Yarn Sarath came down from his seat and walked over to Elena. He laid one cool crystal hand on her shoulder. He meant it kindly. "That was the worst part. Grief is understandable," he said, "but your species must learn the long view. In 1,000 years, this will be a footnote. We have all lost worlds. In our time, we have all wanted blood. The mark of a true civilization is the choice not to take it." Elena looked up at him. She did not move her shoulder away, but she did not lean into the touch either. "Thank you, Speaker Yarn Sarath," she said quietly. "I will remember your words." She walked out of the great hall with Marcus at her side. They did not speak in the corridor. They did not speak in the lift. They did not speak in the small human office, where the staff stood up when they entered, hopeful, then sat back down when they saw Elena's face. Elena went into her private room and closed the door. She sat down at her desk and put her face in her hands and stayed there for a long time. Then she lifted her head and turned on the secure channel to Earth. The president answered at once. She had been waiting. "They voted for a censure," Elena said. Her voice was flat. "And sanctions in 3 years, and a fact-finding mission in 2 years. They told me to take the long view." The president did not answer for several seconds. Then she said, very softly, "I see." Marcus, who had come in behind Elena, stepped forward. He looked at the screen. He looked at Elena. He took a deep breath. "Madam President," he said. "Permission to demonstrate the long view, ma'am." The line went quiet. The president of Earth looked at her admiral on the small, bright screen. Her eyes did not blink. The whole weight of 2 centuries of patience sat between them. "Permission granted, Admiral Chen," she said. "Begin." The screen went dark. Elena sat very still in her chair. Outside the office window, the stars of the council capital still shone, calm and far away, as they had shone for 10,000 years. They did not know what was coming, but they would. Soon, they would. Humanity did not declare war. There was no speech. There was no warning. There was no proud message broadcast to the stars. Earth simply went quiet, the way a lion goes quiet, just before it moves. 2 weeks passed after Elena's failed speech in the Great Hall. To the council, it looked as if the humans had finally given up. They had stopped asking for action. They had stopped sending angry messages. Elena even attended the next routine session and voted on a small fishing rights case without making any fuss. The older species relaxed. They told each other, in private, that the humans had at last learned the long view. The young species was growing up, but far from the bright halls of the council, in the cold dark between the stars, the long view was being prepared. On the Drathari Imperium's outer border, a fleet of 300 warships rode in tight formation around their flagship, the Iron Crown. The Drathari ships were huge, ugly things, all spikes and dark plates. They were proud of their fleet. They had not lost a battle in 80 years. They had broken 6 small civilizations and taken slaves from 12 more. The captain of the Iron Crown, a tall and heavy warrior named Vask Kral, sat on his command throne and watched his sensor screens. There was nothing on them. Just empty space. Captain Vask was happy. He had eaten a fine meal. He had a new shipment of human captives in the lower decks, 100 of the strongest ones, kept for a special buyer. He thought about the price he would get. He thought about the small island world he would buy with the gold. He smiled, in his Drathari way, which was a flat showing of his teeth. Then his sensors went dark. Not just one screen. All of them. Every screen in his ship. Every long-range scanner. And every short-range scope. The numbers on his consoles froze, then dropped to 0. Captain Vask's smile faded. He shouted at his sensor officer. The sensor officer was already typing, already trying to bring the systems back. Nothing worked. At the same moment, on every other Drathari ship in the fleet, the same thing was happening. 300 warships had just gone blind, then deaf, then mute. Their long-range communications failed. Their short-range chatter failed. The Iron Crown could no longer talk to the Iron Fist, or the Iron Hand, or any of its sister vessels. They were 300 ships floating in the dark, with no way to see, and no way to call for help. Far away, on a Vorthak observer station 3 light-years from the Drathari border, a quiet old technician named Selin Vor noticed something strange on her gravity scope. There were small ripples in space, tiny ones, like the wake of ships moving very fast and very quiet, ships that should not have been there. She frowned. She tapped at her screen. The ripples were gone before she could mark them. On a Solari mind bridge station even further out, a young mind reader named Murati gave a small cry and fell out of her chair. Her face was white. Her hands were shaking. She had been doing a routine sweep of nearby ships, listening for thoughts, the way Solari always did. She had touched something, a human ship, and her mind had bounced off it like a ball off a wall. There were no thoughts there. None at all. Not because the humans were dead, but because they had built something her people had never seen. A wall around the mind. A shield no Solari could break. Murati reported it at once. Her superiors did not believe her. They sent another reader. The same thing happened. They sent a third. The third reader screamed and had to be sedated. Then the superiors began to listen. Back at the Drathari fleet, Captain Vask was still trying to figure out what was wrong with his ships. He had ordered his men to look out the windows with simple optical tools, since none of the modern systems were working. The men looked. At first they saw nothing. Just stars. Then they saw the stars going out. Not all of them. Just small patches. Patches that moved. Patches that flowed around the Drathari fleet like dark fish around a school of bright ones. The men did not understand at first. Then one of the youngest soldiers said, in a small voice, "Sir, those are ships. Those are human ships. They are right next to us." Captain Vask's blood ran cold. He grabbed for his close defense controls. Too late. The first kinetic round hit the Iron Crown's flank. It was not an energy beam. The Drathari shields were ready for energy beams. This was a simple piece of metal, fired so fast that physics itself broke its rules. The round went through the shield, as if the shield were not there. It went through the hull. It went through 3 internal walls. It came out the other side of the ship. The Iron Crown shook. Alarms began to wail. Captain Vask did not even have time to give a real order before the second round hit. Then the third. The fourth. The Iron Crown was not destroyed. That would have been kind. Instead, it was carefully cut open, deck by deck, by a swarm of small invisible ships that knew exactly where every important system was. Captain Vask, in the last few minutes of his life, saw something he had never seen before. He saw his crew running. He saw fire in his halls. He saw a single human soldier, in light dark armor, walk down his bridge, step over the bodies of his guards, and look at him without anger or fear. The soldier said something into a small wrist console. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Vask alive among the wreckage, because Vask was needed for something later. Across the fleet, The same dance was happening on every Drathari ship at the same time. 41 minutes after the first round struck the Iron Crown, 300 Drathari warships had been silenced. Some were broken into pieces. Some floated dead, their crews captured or killed. The Iron Crown itself was towed slowly into the dark by a human ship that had not even been visible an hour before. Far away, the Vorthak technician Selen Vor was now staring at her gravity scope with wide eyes. The ripples were back. They were many. They were moving in shapes her teachers had told her were impossible. Tight swarms, silent fast moves, coordinated jumps that should have needed long radio calls between ships, but seemed to need none. The humans were doing them as if they were nothing. Selen Vor sent her report up the chain. Her report reached the Vorthak High Command. The Vorthak High Command sent it to the Council. By the time it arrived, more reports were coming in from 20 other observer stations. The same story, told again and again. Drathari ships gone dark, human ghosts in the void, strange weapons, strange shields, strange minds that could not be read. The Great Hall was called into emergency session. The Vorthak speaker rose, his old crystal face lined with worry. The Solari Mind Mother trembled in her nest. Even the Krellonaut hive was buzzing in a way it had not buzzed in years. The speaker turned to the small human seat. It was empty. Elena Voss was not there. Elena Voss was on the bridge of a human ship now, in orbit around a Drathari supply world, watching her people work. Her wrist console buzzed. The council was calling. She did not answer. Back in the Great Hall, the council called once, then twice, then 10 times. They sent messages on every channel humans had ever used. They got no reply. The hall fell into a kind of stunned quiet. Older species who had never been ignored before in their long lives were being ignored now. Then, at last, a single human transmission came in. It was on the main council frequency, the one used for great speeches. The voice that spoke was Admiral Marcus Chen's. It was calm. It was steady. It was almost gentle. "Esteemed members of the council," he said, "we have begun a small action against the Drathari Imperium in response to the attack on Kepler Nova. We will be brief. We will be careful with civilians. We will return to the table when we are finished." There was a pause. Marcus's voice came back. Quieter now. "We are not finished," he said. "Do not interfere." The transmission ended. The Great Hall sat in silence. The Vorthak speaker tried to speak, but found he had nothing to say. The Solari Mind Mother covered her many eyes with one soft hand. The Krellonaut hive went still. Outside, in the deep dark, the long view had begun. For 3 days, the council could not get the humans to answer their calls. For 3 days, the Great Hall stayed in nearly constant session, with delegates rushing in and out, their robes pulled around them, their faces tight. Reports kept coming in. Each one was worse than the last, in the eyes of the older species, because each one showed that the humans were not stopping. The Drathari home fleet was gone. The Drathari border garrisons had fallen. Drathari shipping lanes were closed. Human ships were moving deep into Drathari space, not in a wide war front, but in many small, fast strikes. They struck markets. They struck slave docks. They struck the private estates of Drathari nobles. They left the regular cities and farms alone. They left the common Drathari people alone. But every place where the harvest of weaker species had been planned, paid for, or carried out, was being unmade. On the 4th day, Elena Voss returned to the Great Hall. She walked in alone. She did not bring her staff. She did not bring her papers. She wore the same plain dark suit she had worn on the day she first reported Kepler Nova. She walked across the long crystal floor with steady steps and stopped at the center of the chamber. The 17 seats were full. The Vorthak speaker, the Solari Mind Mother, the Krellonaut hive, all the older species, and all the smaller ones. Every face turned toward her. The speaker lifted his crystal hand. "Ambassador Voss," he said, and his voice trembled in a way it had never trembled before. "You must call off your forces at once. The council demands it. This violence is beyond all law. It is beyond all right. You must stop." Elena did not answer right away. She let the silence sit. Then she lifted her chin. "Speaker Yarn Sarath," she said, using his personal name, which was a small shock all on its own. "Before I answer you, I would like to read a short list. Will you allow me?" The speaker stared at her. Then he nodded slowly. Elena lifted a small device from her pocket. She did not look at it. She had memorized it all. "In the year that the Vorthak call the Year of Soft Wind," she said, "the Drathari attacked the world of HFY and took 12,000 people. The council passed a censure. The Drathari kept the people. In the next cycle, they attacked the world of Bren 3 and took 80,000 people. The council passed a stronger censure. The Drathari sold the people. In the cycle after that, they attacked the Hollow Worlds and took 200,000 people. The council started a fact-finding mission. The mission has not yet been completed. It has been 40 years. She paused. The hall was very quiet. "In the cycle of the three suns," she went on, "the Drathari took the Vren. In the cycle of the Long River, they took the Tesseract. In the cycle of the White Star, they took the Po Lin. 26 small civilizations have been raided by the Drathari since this council was founded. 26. Some of those species do not exist anymore. The council passed letters about all of them. The council called for patience. The council kept the long view." She lifted her eyes to the Vorthak speaker. "Tell me, speaker, what is the long view of a species that is gone?" The speaker did not answer. Elena turned to the Solari Mind Mother. "Mother of Minds," she said, "you told me that civilization is the choice to wait, to act slowly. We humans, we have waited 2 centuries. We have read every report. We have signed every treaty. We have done every slow thing you asked of us. And while we waited, the Drathari took our people. They did not wait. So we ask you now, when does waiting become a kind of crime?" The Solari Mind Mother lowered her many eyes. She did not answer either. Elena turned to the rest of the council. She spoke more softly now, but every word carried. "We have not gone to war," she said. "A war is what civilizations do when they want to take a thing. We are not taking. We are not conquering. We are not crowning a king. We have one goal, and one only. We are removing the systems that allowed Kepler Nova to happen. The slave docks, the harvest centers, the buyers, in every species, who paid Drathari coin for living beings, the officers who gave the orders, the records that hid them." She let that sit. Then she went on. "We are leaving the common Drathari alone. We are leaving their cities standing. Their farms still feed them. Their schools still teach. We have killed no civilian who was not armed. We have struck no hospital. We have burned no library. We are not animals. We are humans. And we are doing what should have been done 100 years ago." A tall, thin Solari delegate at the back of the hall stood up suddenly. He was new. He was young. His name was S. Rennie, and he had not yet learned the rules of careful speech. "This is against the Convention on Proportional Response," he cried. "The Council signed it 3,000 years ago. No species may strike harder than it has been struck. The Drathari attacked one world. You are taking apart their entire economy." Elena turned to him. Her eyes were calm. "You are right," she said. "It is against the convention. But the humans were never asked to sign that convention. We never agreed to it. We were told it applied only to council members in good standing. The Drathari are not members, so the convention does not bind us toward them. We checked. Many times." S. Rennie opened and closed his mouth. He sat back down. The older Solari behind him hissed at him in a soft warning. Then, for the first time in the memory of every being in the hall, the Krellanaut hive spoke without being spoken to. Its many small drones lifted their heads at the same moment. Its great central body, in the back of the chamber, opened a single round mouth. "The humans have been listening," the hive said, in a voice like many bees together. "We have not. The hive sees this now. The hive admits it." Every other delegate turned to stare. The Krellanaut had not made an unsolicited statement in 9 standard years. Some old Vorthak scholars had wondered if it had forgotten how. The Vorthak speaker rose. He looked at Elena for a long moment. Old grief sat in his crystal face. "What do you want, Ambassador?" he asked at last. "What ending do you seek? Tell us, so this may end." Elena let her shoulders drop, just a little. She had been waiting for that question. "We want 3 things," she said. "First, the return of every survivor of Kepler Nova who can still be found. Second, a new treaty, drafted by humans, that the Council will review and sign within 30 cycles. It will be a treaty about predators, about what is owed to weaker species, about the limits of patience. Third, the formal removal of every Council member who can be shown to have bought from the Drathari markets. We have the names. We will share them." She paused. Then she added, more quietly, "After that, we will lay down our arms. Not before." The speaker bowed his old head. He did not have the strength to argue. None of them did. 2 days later, a Drathari surrender ship arrived at the Council capital. It carried high lords of the Imperium in their finest armor, with their flags lowered. They came to surrender to the humans. The humans did not receive them. Marcus Chen sent a single short message back. "Surrender is offered to enemies," it said. "You are not our enemy. You are our example. Go home and wait." The Drathari lords, who had never been refused a surrender in their long history, did not know what to do. They stayed in their ship for 3 days. Then they went home. Their fleet was gone. Their power was gone. Their proud name, the name they had carried like a sword for 10,000 years, now meant only one thing across the galaxy. It meant, do not become this. Do not be the example. Listen, while you still can. In the Great Hall, the older species began, slowly and painfully, to listen. The campaign ended on the 73rd day. Admiral Marcus Chen sent a short message to Earth and to the Council. It said only, "It is done. We are coming home." Then the small invisible ships that had haunted the Drathari sky began, one by one, to turn around. They left no flags planted. They left no monuments. They left only a long quiet behind them. The Drathari Imperium still existed. Humanity had been clear about that. The common people, the farmers and shopkeepers and teachers and children, had not been touched. The cities still stood, but the warrior class that had ruled the empire for so long was gone. The slave docks were ash. The harvest centers were empty. The old noble houses had been broken open, and their records spread to the galaxy. And in their place, a new young Drathari council had been chosen, made up of those few who had spoken against the raids and been quiet about it. The new Drathari council signed the treaty humanity gave them. The treaty was simple. It said, "You may keep your worlds, your culture, and your pride, but you may never again lift a hand against a weaker species. If you do, we will return. We will not announce it. We will simply come." The new Drathari Council signed it within 1 day. They did not even read all of it twice. Elena Voss came back to the Council capital one quiet morning 2 months later. She walked into the Great Hall the same way she had walked in many times before. She wore the same plain dark suit. She carried a single thin folder under her arm. She did not look angry. She did not look proud. She just looked tired, in a deep way, as if a long and heavy season had finally ended. The 17 seats were full. The hall was very still. None of the older species spoke as Elena walked across the floor. None of the smaller ones spoke either. The Solari Mind Mother lifted her many soft eyes. The Krellinot hive turned its drones one by one to face Elena. Even the Vorthak speaker, in his high seat, simply waited. Elena stopped in the middle of the chamber. She set her folder down on the small table in front of her. She did not open it. "Honored members," she said, "I am here to give you the formal close of our action against the Drathari Imperium. We have returned all the survivors we could find from Kepler Nova. There were 8,000. We had hoped for more. We will keep looking, in the years ahead, for any others. The new Drathari Council has signed a binding treaty under our terms. The action is over. We thank you for not interfering." The Vorthak speaker rose slowly. He was old. He had been old when Elena was a child. He looked older now than he had ever looked. Ambassador Voss, he said, the Council has a question. We have spoken among ourselves for many days. We cannot agree on the answer. So we ask you, why did you wait so long? 2 centuries you sat in this hall. 2 centuries you smiled and nodded. Why? If you had this strength all along, why did you not use it sooner? Elena let the question sit for a long moment. The hall waited. She could feel every eye on her. Because we were learning, she said at last. We were learning the Council, its rules, its blind spots, its ideas about what makes a civilization good. We watched, and we listened, and we read. And after 200 years, we came to a conclusion. The Council had confused 2 things. It had confused patience with goodness. It had confused process with justice. The Council thought that if a thing was slow, it must be wise. If a thing was hard to do, it must be the right thing. The Council had stopped asking whether the slow, careful path actually saved any lives. We did the math. The slow path did not save lives. The slow path lost them, by the millions, while we wrote our letters. She paused. Then she went on, more softly. So we made a choice. We chose a different idea of civilization. One where predators learn, immediately and without forgetting, that prey can bite back. One where the long view is not the view of those who are not yet hungry. The long view should be the view of those who are about to be eaten. We have spent 2 centuries patient. 2 million colonists died anyway. So we tried something new. And here we are. The Solari Mind Mother spoke. Her voice was very small. It was so quick, Ambassador. We did not even have time to prepare a response. Yes, Mother of Minds, Elena said. That was the point. Then Elena opened the folder she had brought. Inside were 47 pages. She lifted them and laid them, 1 stack at a time, on the speaker's high podium. This is our offering, she said. These are the changes we ask the Council to make to its own charter. We do not ask for power. We do not ask for a higher seat. We ask only that the rules of this body be rewritten so that the next Kepler Nova does not happen, so that the next species who comes asking for help is heard, so that patience does not become a wall behind which crimes can hide. We ask the Council to read these pages. We ask the Council to vote. She stepped back from the podium. She bowed, just a little, to the Vorthak speaker. Then she walked back to the small human seat and sat down. The Council read the pages. The Council argued. The Council called in scholars and lawyers and ancient philosophers. There were long sessions. There were difficult words. But in the end, after 1 Earth month, the changes were ratified. Every species voted yes. Not one objected. Even the Vorthak High Circle, which had not changed its position on any major matter in 800 years, voted yes. The new charter was different. It said that any species attacked by a non-council power had the right to immediate self-defense, with full council backing. It said that no member of the council could trade with known slave economies. It said that any council member found to have bought from such markets would lose its seat. It said that delay, beyond a certain limit, was its own kind of crime. The charter became known, in the years that followed, as the Voss Articles. Many years passed. The galaxy was quieter now. There were fewer raids. The few raids that did happen were stopped quickly, often by joint council fleets, sometimes with humans in the lead, sometimes not. The Drathari Imperium became, in time, a peaceful trading partner. Their new young leaders were careful and humble, in a way the old warriors had never been. Their children grew up reading the names of Kepler Nova's dead in their schools. Elena Voss retired 10 years after the speech. She went home to Earth. She gardened. She wrote a small book. Marcus Chen retired too, eventually. He went to live by a quiet sea on a small green world. Long after both of them were old, a young Vorthak scholar named Tessa Rin came to interview Marcus Chen. She was writing a thesis on what her people now called the Silence Doctrine. Marcus met her at his door. He brought her tea on a wooden tray. They sat on the porch and looked at the sea, which was the same color as the sky, both of them blue and slow. Tesserin asked him many questions. Marcus answered them all. At the end, she asked the last one, the one she had come for. "Admiral," she said, "do humans regret the silence doctrine? Even now, looking back? Was it the right thing?" Marcus did not answer for a long time. He watched a small bird, white and quick, dive at the waves. He watched it lift again, with a small silver fish in its beak. He set down his tea. Then he turned to Tesserin and gave her the same 7 words he had once given a president, on a small bright screen, with the whole weight of 2 centuries between them. "Permission to demonstrate the long view, ma'am." Tesserin wrote it down. She sat with it for a long time. She did not yet understand it, fully, the way Elena Voss had understood it that day in the Great Hall. But she would. Her children would. Her children's children would. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. It had learned that the long view does not belong only to the strong. It belongs most of all to those who remember. And humanity, the small young species in the back seat of the Great Hall, had a very long memory indeed. Far above, the stars wheeled on in their slow dance. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had seen the careful old council and the quiet new humans. They did not judge. They only kept turning, as they always had. But somewhere, in the dark between them, 2 million names were carved on a quiet stone. And every year, on the day the colony fell, a single small ship still went out to read them aloud, one by one, into the silence that had once been Kepler Nova. Humanity did not forget. That, in the end, was the whole story.